Mic check, 1 2 1 2. What's going on, folks? It's your boy D Alonzo Lang back at you again with some more friendly folks content for your feed. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for following. Thank y'all for being engaged. From the bottom of my heart, ladies and gentlemen, it is May 3rd when I'm recording this. So the month of May is a month of mental health awareness, and if you know your boy D Alonzo Lang, I'm a very big mental health advocate to the core of my being. So I'm here to unveil some new friendly folks content with our new series, Moment of Clarity. Like I said, I'm very big on mental health advocacy, and mental health is a topic that has a lot of stigma with it in the black community, in black and brown communities, and even within the cannabis community. The way that we discuss mental health can be a bit problematic at times. So, as leader of the friendly folks of all the world, leader of the friendly folks of all the world. Shout out to the friendly folks on Mars. Shout out to the friendly folks on Venus. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the friendly folks on Uranus. It's my job to make sure that we're having the conversations necessary to destigmatize, some of these topics, and, to make sure that the conversation we having around it is digestible. You know what I mean? I do consider myself a professional. I do have aspirations of becoming a doctor in the field of psychology. However, my sister always told me that it doesn't matter how much knowledge you're able to accumulate in this world if you don't have the ability to communicate it with the people who need it. And as you know, black and brown communities, we need to know about our mental health. We need mental health awareness, right? So that's what this first episode is about. This first episode of Moment of Clarity is about mental health awareness, and future episodes will be focused on topics having to do with mental health in our current culture today, right? So, with all that being said, let's get into it. What exactly is mental health awareness? Well, mental health awareness is the acknowledgement of how important mental health is to ourselves and our communities and just the world as a whole. Because mental health is something that is, it's a hard concept to grasp because it's not in the physical necessarily. Your mental health has more to do with what you're processing internally as opposed to how it's translating on the physical side. However, it can do that. A lot of mental health ailments do manifest as physical symptoms. And the reason for this is because, taking it back to the root of things, the idea of mental health comes from ancient theories and philosophy that, brought to light ideas of consciousness, self-awareness, all these different things that have to do with the mind, right? And the way that we think about things, the way that we think about the world, the way that we understand human interaction, and even the way that we understand our morals, right? Why do we understand some things as good versus bad? Why do we respect some things over others? Why do we have motivation to do certain things versus not having motivation to do other things, right? So all these questions are rooted in behavior, and then around the late 1800s, early 1900s, psychology became accepted as an actual discipline separate from biology and philosophy, because one of the biggest questions about the role of the brain back in these ancient times of philosophy, right? The biggest questions were about this idea of body and soul, right? Is the body linked to the soul? And the understanding of what the soul was the brain, the mind, how we think, how we feel, how we process things, right? So psychology is the study of human behavior, and human behavior has the biggest impact on our mental health. The way that we behave on a day-to-day basis has the biggest impact on our mental health. Granted, there are factors like genetics. If you have a genetic history of family members who deal with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, etc., other mental health ailments, you yourself may be more at risk of developing these ailments at some point in your life. However, that isn't to say that just because your parents have it or your siblings have it, that you're destined to have it. And just because your parents didn't have it and your siblings didn't have it, that you may never experience it, right? Because mental health it's not like physical health in the sense that if I have a broken arm, you can very clearly see that my arm is broken. If I have a broken leg, you can very clearly see that my leg is broken. But if my mind is in pain, if I'm in emotional pain, if I'm dealing with emotional trauma, a mental trauma, you can't necessarily see that on my physical body. You might see, a change in my face, like I might be in a worse mood, but you won't see just how much I'm in pain mentally and how much I'm in pain emotionally. So because of that, because of the nature of mental health, we have to do the most to assess ourselves. We as individuals have to be able to look inside ourselves, take an introspective approach to some of the things we're dealing with. And when we reflect on these things that are causing us stress, we have to be able to look at them and embrace them, not suppress them, not ignore the feelings that they bring up, but accept the feelings and process them. Because that inability to process them can lead to developing more mental health ailments like depression or anxiety. And it's never as cut and dry as that, but just to give you an idea of identifying mental health awareness in yourself. You gotta look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I sad today? And if you are sad, take a minute to acknowledge that you're sad. Be kind to yourself first and foremost, and don't be afraid to think about what's causing you to be sad. Because the only way that we can address these negative feelings in ourselves is by acknowledging them. By acknowledging them, we gain the ability to respond to them. You know what I mean? So mental health awareness. Why is mental health awareness so important? Why are we even talking about it on Friendly Folks? Well, as a black man, in case any of y'all were wondering, as a black man, mental health is something that is very heavily stigmatized, and I hope I said that word right. Very heavily stigmatized in black communities and amongst, the male community, especially the intersectionality of being a black man. Black men, we're often expected to be very tough. Black people as a whole, we're expected to be very tough. We're expected not to let things phase us. And because of that, it's harder for us to be genuine with ourselves and acknowledge that, I'm kind of sad about this. I actually am not okay and just moving forward with this. I'm kind of sad, and it's kind of hard to process because it's something that, our communities, we haven't had that luxury of just being able to stop and breathe. We haven't had the chance to just take a deep breath and stop and think and ask ourselves how we feel, because our people have constantly been devoted towards, fighting for advocacy and equity in America. So the cost of that has been having to put on that strong face and, having that strong push forward and not being able to open up and be vulnerable and, have some moments of weakness. Because truthfully, in my opinion, I think the only way that you become stronger is by acknowledging weakness. If you have to put on armor to not feel pain, then you're not really invulnerable. You're putting the mask on to defend yourself. But if you're able to take all these different hits that life gives you and bleed and acknowledge the bleeding and still find it in yourself to keep that heart beating, that's when you've, become untouchable. Because everything can touch you and it's like it didn't even matter. Because these feelings, we're meant to feel these feelings. Mental health awareness isn't about accessing this ideal of perfect happiness, and I'm just 100% at peace, like a Buddhist monk in Tibet on the mountaintops. Like, no, that's not mental health awareness. It's not this constant idea of happiness. Mental health awareness is the awareness of all of the different feelings that you do feel. Because my extent of happiness or sadness or anger or whatever emotion might not be the same as your extent. But that doesn't mean that either of our feelings are invalid. It's important for you as an individual and for me as an individual to be able to acknowledge how different things cause us to react and how different things make us feel. Because in acknowledging how different things make us feel, we can take steps in our behavior to respond to them accordingly and create situations for ourselves where, things work in our best interest. Because you can't control everything. It can't be done. If it could, someone else would have did it, and none of us would have to worry about what the world is right now. But that's not what the world is. You can only control yourself and your response to things. And I believe that mental health awareness is also having that awareness of your power. You can't control everything, but you can control yourself. You can control the way you respond to things. Even when we get into those moments where our emotions overpower us and we're no longer in our best character with the way we're acting, we still can reflect. Like, no one else can push the brakes on your car except for you. No one else can push the brakes for yourself except for you. So if you understand the things that push you to that breaking point, you can bring yourself back from that breaking point. And now you've done become even stronger because your breaking point no longer breaks you. You were broken and you built yourself back up like a mosaic. And now the resulting image is even more beautiful than before it wasn't broken. Ain't that crazy? With mental health being such an abstract topic, it doesn't get the conversation that it deserves. And I'm glad to see that it's coming to the forefront in this modern era. But you gotta understand that mental health, this isn't something that our parents really got the chance to talk about. Mental health wasn't even something that was even brought to their awareness unless, you have a parent who studies psychology as their discipline, right? So in the black community, we need to have these conversations, but in the cannabis community, we need to be very intentional about these conversations because our community, we have a tendency to self-medicate. And for my members of the cannabis community who are not people of color, I'm sure that some of y'all who might have y'all experience self-medicating, y'all can y'all can use that to relate to people of color who also self-medicate in other ways outside of cannabis. But you gotta understand, cannabis is, the drug of the culture. Cannabis it's something that people of urban environments and people of, I don't want to say suburban environments because that just sounds like I'm contrasting the urban and suburban. Cannabis is a substance that has brought together very liberal spaces in America and across the world, right? The people who believe in self-expression and individuality and the emergence of the global world and, peace above exploitation and warfare and all that other stuff, they all kind of find home in the cannabis community because, that tends to be their substance of choice, right? So with that, I feel like within the cannabis community, because we are so accustomed to being able to smoke weed to deal with a lot of our stress, we don't take the time to acknowledge the stress and where it's coming from. And they're talking about mental health. We gotta talk about awareness of addiction because, you can be addicted to cannabis in the sense of it being your sole coping response when shit goes wrong, right? You can't just smoke the blunt and your problems go away. You can smoke the blunt to deal with the stress a little bit better, but you still have to deal with the problem. You still have to deal with the problem. And that's where it becomes problematic with some forms of cannabis usage, because it's so easy. Like, look at this. This is an amazing tree. It's so easy to let everything else be muted by the smoke and ignore everything else, right? So what we're seeing with increased cannabis usage and with the application of medicinal cannabis is microdosing and utilizing cannabis not as a drug to suppress things, but as a legitimate coping mechanism, right? Being conscious of your usage and being conscious of how this activity has an effect on your mental health. Because if you find yourself developing a dependency to cannabis to do your day-to-day activities, then it's some things that you might need to address with a professional. And there's nothing wrong with dealing with depression. There's nothing wrong with dealing with anxiety. There's nothing wrong with having these feelings, right? And that's another big part of mental health awareness, knowing that it's not anything wrong with you for dealing with these feelings, and there's nothing wrong with anyone else for dealing with these feelings. And we shouldn't treat anybody dealing with these ailments as if there's something wrong with their character, right? But what we need in awareness is understanding that there are professional resources out there for help, and you're not weak for seeking help. Getting help only makes you so much stronger. So how does that work? How does mental health awareness look in your life? Like, how do you know when you're aware of your mental health? You're aware of your mental health when you're doing things to help maintain yourself. You're aware of your mental health when you can acknowledge some of the triggers in your life. You can acknowledge the things that make you angry, the things that make you sad, the things that make you happy, the things that motivate you, the things that take away your motivation. Mental health awareness is gained by embracing yourself. And in embracing yourself, knowing how to nurture the things you love and how to tend to the things that are stressing you. Because there is no world where you just get to live 100% stress-free and everything works out and there's no room for sadness. That doesn't exist. But there is a world where the set of problems that you're dealing with are problems that you can handle. And of course, life throws the occasional curveball at you, but the skill set you've developed in having mental health awareness allows you to, deal with the curveballs like you at bat in the major leagues. You just gotta swing. You just gotta swing and hit that motherfucker out the park, you know what I mean? So don't be afraid to swing. Don't be afraid to take the hits. Don't be afraid to strike out. Don't be afraid to hit a foul ball. It may not be perfect every time you do what you need to do for your mental health. It may not always fit the mold. But just like if you break a bone and you have to go to physical therapy, you're going to have those days when you feel like you're amazing, you're on top of the world. You're going to have those days when it feels like nothing is working. Take every one of those days and embrace them. Make the most out of them. It's not easy to live in the present moment. But if you live too far in the past, then you find yourself in a loop of what ifs. Could've, would've, should'ves. You live too far in the future, you find yourself in the same world of what ifs. Could've, would'ves, and should'ves. So if you focus on the present moment and you acknowledge that, okay, there are some things in the past I don't want to return to, and there are some things in the future that I want to avoid. There were some things in the past that I enjoyed, and there are some things in the future that I would also like to enjoy. You can use the past as solid ground to stand on and use that solid ground to raise yourself high enough in the present to see all the different mountains and peaks and horizons that the future has to offer you. And in seeing them, you can create a plan to get there. Mental health awareness is so much more than just curing your sadness. Mental health awareness is the awareness of how you think, how you process things, how you respond to the world. And in being aware of your mental health, you become aware of how you respond to things. You become aware of, what makes you tick. And in finding that awareness, it becomes a lot easier to do the things that you need to do to live the life that you would like to live. So how do we develop our mental health awareness? Well, the first thing you can do to develop your mental health awareness is continue to have this conversation. Thank you for watching this video and enjoying this content and taking the time to listen, because that's part of developing your mental health awareness. I made this content to help spread awareness on mental health. So share this with your friends, your family. Like, if this was a nice, comforting way to kind of get into that topic of mental health and, delve into it a little bit more, then share it with somebody who might need to hear this. And subscribe to the Friendly Folks page, because we are mental health advocates over here. Like I've been saying it, I say it once, I say it 5 times, I say it 25 times. Friendly Folks is more than a brand. We are a community. We are a community of friendly folks. So go ahead and subscribe, and you always can DM us. You can always leave a comment. You got an ally with the Friendly Folks. That ain't never got to be questioned. You hear me? And take the time to have that moment of clarity for yourself. Take a minute to just breathe, smell the roses, practice gratitude, and establishing a moment of clarity for yourself is taking the time to ask yourself how you feel. That's what moment of clarity is about, and that's just another small part of the big piece of Friendly Folks. So go ahead, get yourself a piece of Friendly Folks, subscribe, leave a like, comment, share it with your friends and family, and stay tuned for more mental health content. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. I plan on dropping more mental health related content, so stay tuned. Tell a friend, tell a family member, and hey, tell yourself thank you, because you're doing the work. You're doing the work. If you have the intent to develop mental health awareness, that's the first step. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for developing your mental health awareness, and thank you for listening to another episode of Friendly Folks. Catch y'all next time. Peace out.